I love having an SD card on my camera filled up with like somebody thrashing on an electric guitar, or like a crowded DIY basement, and then like a kiddo running through a like bounce house. And I love that dichotomy.
This is Champagne is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champagne is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champagne Showers Podcast Network. Welcome to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. Today I have Caspian Voss. You may know her from her solo project, Caspian June. So, Caspian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Of course, we're going to be listening to your song, Spirit. Let's see, this was actually recorded live at an event at Friendly Valley, which is in Peoria, and you were telling me off mic about what was going on at this event, that you ended up getting a bunch of your songs recorded, and then through the miracle of ones and zeros, we were able to convert it to just audio that you'll be able to hear today in just a little bit. So tell me a little bit about the Friendly Valley and the event that this was recorded at.
Yeah, it was so much fun. It's my friend Allison Hanna's songwriter series, so she has a campfire like round series. My friend Tim Veach is a wonderful photographer that I've known for a while, but he also does video, and as a friend of mine, he was like, hey, any songs you want, I'll get a video of. So he got me all these videos of that and the other 3 songs I got to perform. But Allison Hanna is one of my favorite songwriters of all time. She was one of the first people I ever photographed as well. It was just amazing to be able to share a stage with her. And she invited me up, and was actually hosted on the night by Sarah Marie Dillard. Unfortunately, Allison was sick. She had to kind of step away from the stage for that evening. But I got to share a few songs, and it was really, really fun, really nerve-wracking, but it was cool to see a lot of friends there too.
Without further ado, let's listen to the song.
Empty houses, ever lost in choice, in fasting meditation, when I forget to in slowly letting you go. In my hard work and luck, that serendipity. The friendship in my life pulled me from the brink. I'm so full of water, without a drop to drink, and I see a spirit in the dishes in the sink, something left behind, bruised knees and skating rings. Maybe it's the meds, or all the books I read, but I'll lie in the clutter, 'cause I'm mad. Maybe I was meant to be a grizzly. Hands to the sky or boots to a hearse. Maybe I was meant to be something I am not. A maple tied strong to the earth. But I feel it in the rage when that righteous feeling roars. And when I don't listen, I only feel it more. When we cried about the state of things, well, walking down my street, we felt it all together. I felt it in the grief. I buried a black cat in my neighborhood, 'cause asphalt is no place for something that good. And I see the spirit when I'm walking by, and I think that spirit is kind of like mine. Thank you.
Welcome back. So, of course, my first and favorite question to always ask is, what came first? Was it the music or was it the lyrics?
It was the music this time. I had been fiddling around with guitar, figuring it out, and I tuned it to open D, which has become one of my favorite tunings, and I was just messing around with sliding a chord here and there, and I really liked the way it sounded. I sort of just fell into it. I just started to listen to it, and it had a feeling, and I wanted to write something to remind myself to look around at something wondrous, like the world around me. So I just kind of found the language of spirit. I actually, a lot of it came from and was inspired by a D&D podcast I listened to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I would be remiss if I didn't just dive right into that. So what D&D podcast was that? Did you say that already and I missed it?
I didn't. It was the podcast Worlds Beyond Number. Mm-hmm. So it's hosted by Brennan Lee Mulligan. It's this amazing, very rich tapestry of storytelling. And in it, there's a lot of writing similar to Terry Pratchett and Tolkien. And there's a lot of talk of witches, Ghibli-esque style things of spirits. I wanted to look around and find the spirit to life all around me, just to remind myself that it's there. There are a couple lines in there that are direct references to things that I am trying to learn to appreciate more.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, what in particular was said in this podcast that I want to say triggered that event in your mind to think about observing more of these things around me that, can I say, are maybe particularly mundane or even something that we just take for granted?
Yeah. A line that I used to have in there that I ended up cutting out was talking about, I called it beautiful mundanity, because I wanted to find it. There was a lot of talk of I think one of the main things that inspired it was there was a scarecrow that became activated with a spirit in it. And it was this thing that had just sat there. It was tattered and old and weather worn. And then it came to life, and there was this whole history behind it, and that held its kind of spirit. And then I was like, well, where can I find that? What are the weather-worn things in my life that I'm just passing over right now?
When you look at this, do you think of this as, I hate putting this label, as a happy song? Okay, good. There's a slight pivot in my mind that happened there because I was just, some of the ways that you described it earlier, taking observation of the mundane can be like more of a joyful pursuit. But so I thought maybe the primary thought in the song, but for me, when I listen to it, there's a little bit of sadness with it that from my worldview, I felt was this sense of like potential, but not reaching that potential, but also that sad realization of reaching that potential is possibly impossible. It's like it's something that's built inside of you, but yet you're never going to be able to achieve it, which is, I don't know. Anyway, I think makes this a very sad song. I don't mean to do that, but no. I just was curious because I think there was kind of a direct there that you had that made me think of, well, this could be the realization that maybe you could achieve more, could be viewed as a happy thing. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like go off on a rail, but I just got all excited about my own thoughts, which, I mean, isn't that why you have a podcast? Is so you can get excited about your own thoughts?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I have no idea how much I understand. Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, Karen.
No, it's like, I really liked that perspective because for me, I definitely had a feeling of reflective. Like that's how I viewed it. I didn't know if it was happy. I didn't know if it was sad. And I'd gotten different perspectives. It was very much reflective. There's a part in there that's based on a poem I wrote called Grizzly. I don't know if we're going to chat about it, but like I say, like maybe I was meant to be a grizzly bear. And it's kind of like, it is a question of, what if this isn't what I'm supposed to be? What if I some universal number got added on accident and I became a human rather than a bear or a tree or something like that?
I was thinking of kind of the personification of what being a grizzly, like maybe the thoughts that we have in terms of animal personification. I mean, like, so being aggressive or being large or like being domineering or, in terms of grizzly. But then the part where you talk about maybe I was meant to be a grizzly, hands to the sky, boots to the hearth. I kept thinking about, there's with the hands to the sky, boots to the hearth, it's like this grounded but being pulled upward at the same time, that bi-directional, whatever the hell that is, where it's just like maybe both choices are good, but you can't just not do one or the other. So I don't know. I even did this thing where it was like I put two arrows, one arrow going up and one arrow going down, and I was just like, oh, that's it. Yeah, being stuck but also being pulled.
It's also about like purpose. Like for me, it's like if you're boots to a hearth, your purpose is to like get warm. If you're hands to the sky, you're reaching up. If you're a grizzly, it's like you're in a stream, you catch fish, you sleep, you eat honey. Like there's a bit of simplicity in existence where it's like sometimes I feel like you kind of have to look for it when you're here as a human, and I don't mind that, but it is just like a constant pursuit of a pursuit. So
well, I guess since we're in that section of lyrics that maybe I was meant to be something I am not, and then a maple tied strong to the earth, and I was curious why the choice of the maple, because I feel like the typical answer is somebody be like an oak, because an oak is always old and strong and holds to the ground and blah blah blah. It kind of has that sense of symbolism. So I'm curious with that convention bound of oak, what convention in your mind were you activating, should I say, with the maple? Did that make sense?
That made perfect sense. Yeah, because originally I've gone through so many versions of this song. It was like one of the first songs I ever wrote, and it is one that I really love and I'm like very proud of and happy with. The maple came from, I read a book called Braiding Sweetgrass, and in it the author talks about the maple trees being a part of this town she is a part of. And in it, the maple does something for the people there that live there. They provide shade, they provide syrup. It is a reciprocal nature. She talks a lot about reciprocity in it. And they never ask for anything in return. They're a maple tree. They don't communicate in the same way we do. I liked maple because it was, again, a clear purpose. It was I provide shade. It was I provide something to the people around me. I just also love maple trees. They're fall and autumnal, and there's a whole bunch in it because maple to me is like people also take a lot from maple trees and they don't always ask. You know, they take syrup, they take the wood from it, they take the shade, but what do they ask for? It's like space, clean air, that sort of thing. So a maple to me meant being able to give something, and I could very clearly understand I was giving something back.
So do you see from this perspective, is this that you are meant to be a maple?
I think more and more I have been reminded that I'm meant to be exactly as I am. I just got a new little kitten, and I can't imagine being a maple tree because I love her too much and I need to pet her with my human hands.
Oh, see, and I keep jumping into the whole metaphorical perspective of so I'm jumping that I'm always like, well, I meant like as a personality, like as if it were some kind of what is it shoot, what is the INFJ and ENTP
like Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, Myers-Briggs, thank you. I can never remember.
Yeah.
When it's important, I'll never remember. But if it was in a car conversation that was not being recorded, I could have remembered that entire thing, which is funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a little bit in there of like, I always need to be a version of myself that gives and that sort of thing. Like, that is a useful nature of it. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes I'm a maple, sometimes I'm a grizzly, sometimes I'm not. I think it's like very, very fluid. I wanted to talk about that relationship to like self changes. So, yeah.
I think if you want to say like of the human condition, I always feel that philosophy with Sven. I've heard some discussion of like the whole like a tiger cannot change its stripes, that kind of idea. I don't know if I exactly like that metaphor precisely, but I do think that people exist in a way that is themselves. However it manifests or however it comes out is varied. Maybe I shouldn't have even begun that point because I'm not even sure where I want to follow it. But I think people are who they are throughout, but how that manifests changes. Like, I think everyone can be an asshole. I think everybody can be kind. I think everybody has it in them to do things, but how those parts of them manifest just varies. And that is as much an element of their environment as it is of their own self-reflection. So I don't know. Anyway, this concludes our Sven philosophy.
I learned a lot. I loved it.
There's a lot of this that I find very poignant, and I appreciate the first part of the first two lines. I started to see it, something in the noise. I always think of the world as like, it's just noise all the time. It's just a bunch of noise. Being able to clear something or make some clarity out of what all is going on makes a lot of sense. What was the first line that kind of came out? Was that the maybe I was meant to be a grizzly?
That line was one of the first, I'd say. There was another one as well about I see a spirit in the dishes in the sink. There's a whole story that I didn't get to incorporate into this song that I really love. I used to work with children in Peoria, and there was this little kid who was like playing with, like, we were playing a train game. He was pretending he was the conductor of a train, but we were all pieces of the train, and we were like walking around the room like choo-choo, that sort of thing. I was the middle part of the train, which, being almost 6 foot tall with two very small children in the middle, looked like a very silly train. But we were in the downtown area of Peoria. That's where like the daycare center was. And at one point, a train starts to go by, and we hear this like deep rumbling. And he goes, "What is that?" And I go, "It's a train, the thing that we're playing right now." And he's like, "I've never seen one in real life before." And I was like, "Well, we got it." So we stack up some blocks and sit at the window, and I get to watch this kid see a train for the first time, this thing that he'd like known but never seen. And I was like, what is it like to see the magic and the beauty in these things for the first time? And that line of like, dishes in the sink, something left behind, bruised knees from skating rinks, is, to me, like, the existence of dirty dishes means someone has shared a good meal, someone has lived there, someone has made something. The existence of a bruised knee from falling in a skating rink means that you bundled yourself up and went out on a cold with a group of people that you love. You fell, but you tried, and you kept going, and you healed. So that was one of the first lines that came, and then the grizzly came from a poem I wrote called Grizzly, where I talk about maybe this is something I was meant to be, maybe I was supposed to be tramping through the woods, that sort of thing.
There's a few lines in here that, although I know that we've kind of talked about this kind of bifurcation, this like separation of like one choice over another. So there's the old empty houses, every loss and choice, but then bringing that into the line of infested meditation, which seems very intentional, but then you kind of take it back by saying like, well, when I forgot to eat. It's this intention versus being led. If this song is purely about the idea of like, what are we supposed to be? There's that listening to how your mind or who you are leads you somewhere, or how you yourself decide to lead yourself. What is your opinion about like how you become who you are? Do you feel that you've guided yourself to be the person you should be, or that you feel that you've been guided to be the person you're supposed to be?
I think it's a mix. I mean, I'm definitely inspired and shaped by the people around me. Like, all the people in my life or have been in my life have been either mirrors or walls to myself. Like, they're either reflecting back who I am, or they're things I'm running into and saying, well, I want to grow in this direction. Maybe this person isn't the person that I'm growing in that direction with.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm definitely a reflection of all the people in my life. If you're around my brothers, you can see how I'm exactly like them. But also, I think it is very much the people in your life that shape you who to be. That's at least my perspective. I'm definitely very proudly so, hopefully, like the people that I love in my life. If I got compared to any of the people that I have in my life, I'd count myself very lucky. Because I try to surround myself with people who are kind and good-hearted and loving and imperfect. So, because I'm like, if I'm surrounding myself with a whole bunch of perfect people, I am going to be singled out quick, because I am very imperfect.
How did you bring the elements of the lyrics and then your guitar part together? When you heard that line that you were creating with the open tuning and the sliding the chords back and forth, how did that speak to you that this would be... I'm always curious about the like matching up of like lyrics to like a guitar part. When do you say like, oh, these are like the perfect fit, they're supposed to exist together? Like, I'm curious about like, what was that moment, or how did that happen?
I'm much more intentional with it now, because I feel much more comfortable on the guitar as an instrument, but it was so new at the time. I started playing at the end of March this year. And then originally I wrote this on electric guitar, so the slides were a lot easier, and then moved it to acoustic because I felt it had like more body to it and warmth as well. And now that I play it on acoustic, it feels like it's meant to be played on acoustic.
Interesting. There's a few things about this that I like. The palm mute, the muted strings kind of sound on an electric that fits a little. Anyway, carry on.
I love it. I'm still very much like getting very deep into guitar world right now.
Sure.
One of the first songs I ever learned was a song called Where I Want to Be by Sadie Gustafson Zook, like a friend of mine out of Minneapolis. Amazing songwriter, truly amazing. The whole premise of that song is like, where do I want to be found? When I put myself out there, where do I want to be found in the way that I am right now, in the way that I change? And one of those chord shapes I kind of like was still learning, and I messed it up, and I was like, ooh, I like that sound. And then I moved it down one, and then I was like, okay, if I take my fingers off the fretboard, it's hard to put them back on, so I just keep them and slide. I like that sound. And then I went, ooh, I really like that. Let me change it and put my finger here. And then there's a little bit where I slide up to about the 5th fret and like hold down the like top 4 strings, and it has this really light, airy sound that I thought moved through it. I'm really inspired by a lot of the guitar players in Peoria, a lot of friends of mine, but it was purely a mistake from someone learning. And then I thought, this feels like this poem I wrote, so let me add some of the parts of this poem here. But then I wanted to make it rhyme a little bit, so I changed it, and then it just kept building and building and building until I was kind of going through a massive life change. I just had a few very close people in my life like pass away, and I was like, I want to find where they're still here. A lot of that came from like what was left behind, you know?
Yeah.
So a lot of just fiddling around on the guitar, being pretty rough at it, way louder than I should have had the amp, so shout out to my neighbors.
I think it's interesting that somehow, metaphorically, the way that you're playing the guitar in this piece, for some of it, I know that there's some changes that are happening as well, but the idea that the way that you're making different chords is that you are holding your shape through all these different iterations of things. Like you personally, like I was thinking about you as yourself trying to hold your shape while doing these different things. Integrity doesn't sound like the right word, but like where it's like you maintain true to yourself, but through these different changes at the same time. I don't know. That's just what popped into my head. I don't know.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we're talking a lot about like nature versus nurture as well. And like my perspective on that is shaped a lot by being trans as well, because a lot of who I am is directly having to be an intentional choice based on the norm that society as a whole told me who I am, and I had to go, no, I'm something different. I see this thing and I'm going to walk towards it. And as I listened to that, I became happier and more fulfilled and more myself. I don't know that a different version of me that didn't listen would be playing music now. So it's like very intentional. And again, I was inspired by the safety of the people around me to listen to who I am. So yeah, there's a whole lot into it.
Our inward and outward, like how we manifest and how we move throughout the world, is so complicated. I mean, I say that as a person that is cis male and presenting as such, so I don't have to enter into a room and have a sense of fighting to get, I don't know, to have space, to now my newest quest is to try to figure out how to be in a room without taking up too much space. Because it's just like, once I became aware of it, I was like, oh my God, there's this weird bubble that just expands outside of me that like affects how people are. And it's like, if there's a way to minimize that bubble, if I could disappear, I would. It's like, if I could just be this little speck that didn't take up any space, that would be great. Because in the years that I've been on this earth, I feel like I've taken up enough space already. So it's like,
really grateful for the space you've taken up. I will say, I love the pod.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I really love the way you ask questions. I enjoy your interviews a lot for that reason. I'm not trying to like gas you up a whole bunch. I understand that, sometimes the conversation about taking up space is about taking up space unwarranted. I like the way you ask questions because it's always feels very invitational. So I like that.
Okay. Well, that's good. Sometimes I feel very random, and I appreciate. I mean, I did enter into this podcast with this idea that it was like, I guess if I were approaching a musician after a gig or on the street and like, oh, I heard the song that you did, and I'm just curious, like I wanted it to have that kind of same feel where it's just like, here's these things that I thought about when listening to your piece, and like might as well share those with other people. But also, what is this whole scene? If you're not paying attention, it can seem like this very tiny aspect, but to me it's expanded into these things where it's like it is into everything in this community. Whatever community is out there in CU, there's a set of musicians, and sometimes those sets of musicians like interact with each other, and it's, I don't know, it's a cool community, an imperfect community, and always able to do better. So that this thing isn't 4 hours long, I want to kind of just mention my favorite part of the song, and then of course I'm going to turn and ask you. There's a section at, I don't know if I want to call it like part of the first verse, because it's just before you say, maybe I was meant to be a grizzly. Maybe it's the meds or the books I've read lie in my clutter, but I made the bed. There's just something about that section that it's like, sure of your own thoughts, but also unsure of your own thoughts at kind of at the same time. There's a lot that's happening. I don't know what it is. It's just the way that it's delivered, and there's something that I can't really put my finger on that sticks out to me about this. Just sometimes it kind of wrecks me a little bit inside. The part where you say, but I made this bed, there's a spot where you change your strum pattern on the guitar that matches the intensity and almost like is kind of a gut punch at the same time, because it's like you and the accompaniment throughout the song have been kind of, okay, we're just kind of going along. The accompaniment here. I'm singing with the accompaniment. The accompaniment is holding, is supporting me. But this one spot feels like you and the accompaniment come together at a fine point and are like, it's that moment where maybe everything drops out except for it's just you and the accompaniment, and you're both in agreement. And it just feels very like, what's the word? Like it's like this is the moment feeling. I don't know if that's the like meant to be like the aha moment, but to me it's just like, okay, that's, you know, I'm facing the thing that I made myself, but where am I getting these thoughts? What is driving me in this? And
no, completely. It's a little, I wanted it to feel a little bit like an acceptance, a little bit of like, yeah, I made this bed. Like, maybe it's the meds, maybe it's me, maybe it's the intentional work I've put in. It's a little bit of like finality, a little bit of frustration. Like, I kind of strum in such a way that I'm like, but I made this bed. So it's kind of like, I gotta live with it, but also I get to live with it. Isn't that lovely?
right.
So it's a mix. It's a mix of the acceptance and the finality of it. I really like that interpretation a lot. This has really been the most fun part about sharing my music out.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. I love it. I love it. I mean, I have been doing spoken word in Peoria, poetry, whatever you want to call it. I always work spoken word. Sounds so pretentious. But I'm like, yeah, you speak a word. What else do you do with it?
Right.
But it's really fun when people come up and say, hey, I found this line or this thing. This spoke to me. I love it a whole lot because there's a thing that Dolly Parton says, which is like, look for the most universal truth. And that's the thing I try to think about. We may not see it the exact same way, and my interpretation isn't necessarily the right one, because it's like, if it meant something to you, that's right. I've kind of had to have that perspective, and there was a little bit of trepidation at some point when people would come up and say, oh, this meant this to me, and I go, oh, but is that what I meant? Like, is that wrong? And then I went, no. That's the whole point of it, because now it's been shared. In that book, Braiding Sweetgrass, that I was talking about earlier, it talks about the nature of a gift economy, which is you give a gift with the expectation that you will get one back eventually. It's reciprocity. So being an audience member is listening to someone's art, consuming it, and then giving that back to the artist is telling them what it meant to you. And I've enjoyed that thoroughly. So it means a whole lot to me when it's different than what I meant it, but it still meant something.
I mean, isn't that the point of creativity, is like, not to sound pretentious, but how do you create another life that gets to live beyond just you? You know what I mean? Like, when you put that song out and other people hear it, it's no longer yours. It has its own, I mean, granted, it can continue to be expressed through you, but once it's out there, it has its own life. I don't know. Anyway, I feel like I could say that 100 different new but exactly the same ways.
No, yeah, I mean, I don't want it to sound like I'm like, this is the best song ever and it's a gift, like that sort of thing. But also I'm like, I like what I make. That's fine. So I'm just sort of like, when I mean that, it's like, it's just being given. Like, the idea of grace is given, love is given with no expectation of it being returned, but it's a gift with the expectation that, like, eventually you will get a gift back. It's reciprocity. Like, that's love, that's grace, that's creating something, I feel like.
What was your favorite part of your song?
There are two parts that really, like, mean a lot to me, and that's how I interpret this question of, like, I talk about drifting apart in the cold, like train tracks in the cold, trying to see, like, spirits in that. And then there's a bit at the end where I talk about I buried a black cat in my neighborhood, because asphalt is no place for something that good. And I talk about how I feel like a black cat. That line was also one that came first for me, because I do feel like a black cat sometimes. And that's also based on a poem, a pretty particularly painful memory. There was unfortunately some cats in my neighborhood. They were stray, got hit by cars. Animal control didn't take care of it. And I was really frustrated, really angry. Right. So I took it upon myself to bury this little cat, this little black cat. And I was like, you know what? I am making it resolute that you are not gone. You're in me. You can hang out with me forever, little cat. Yeah. And since then, I swear it's been a little, I don't know if it's freaky is the right word. I see black cats everywhere now. Huh. They come up to me and I'm like, there was originally a line that I cut that said, you say it's bad luck, but I know you're wrong, because there's a spirit of the black cat in this song. I took that out because the song was already over 5 minutes. But it's that idea of, like, you know, again, being told something you're not. People are, like, scared of black cats, and these cute little guys with the beautiful green eyes running around look like little shadows. Are you kidding me? So Yeah, those are my favorites. Yeah,
Plus, they're cute.
they're really
Cats
cute.
are real cute.
Cats are so cute. Black cats, I think, are adorable. My younger brother has a cat named Monsignor Pruitt, based off the character from Midnight Mass, the show, because full black cat with a tiny little white dot right here, like a little priest collar.
We used to have a one-eyed cat that was gray that also had the little priest collar that I was like always calling him Pastor Gregor. I'd be like, Pastor Gregor, why did you pick this song to be the song you wanted to talk about today?
This is the song that I play like at the beginning of sets because I get pretty nasty stage fright sometimes. It's still so new and I don't know it'll ever go away. I just am kind of like, why am I up here? You know?
Right.
But this one, for all its somberness and for all its kind of reflective nature, it reminds me to kind of look around and say how special it is I get to do this. How special it is I get to play music for nobody, for my bedroom, for a bigger crowd than I have before. It lets me remind myself to just look around and appreciate it. I've been trying more and more to follow a philosophy in my life of live each day like it's the second time through. Like, what am I looking for? What would I have missed? What do I want to look for? It reminds me to really see that, to think about what's there. I mean, what's going to be the dishes in the sink today? That sort of thing.
Champaign is also a band podcast is proud to support Jubilee Cafe. Jubilee Cafe is a free weekly meal program at Community United Church of Christ, 805 South 6th Street in Champaign, Illinois. Jubilee Cafe serves a home-cooked meal from 5 to 6:30 each Monday. Their mission is to feed hungry people by cooking healthy, delicious meals and by serving their guests restaurant-style with servers waiting on tables. Jubilee Cafe is open to anyone who cares to eat with them. Because food insecurity among students is so high, they serve students as well as others in and around the Champaign-Urbana community who struggle with hunger. Meals are free to all and will be served each Monday evening, located in the accessible lower level of the building at 6th and Daniel Streets in Champaign. For more information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email them at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. That's jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, of course, Caspian, what is your favorite Champaign-Urbana venue, past or present?
That's so tough. I love them all. I have such a love for Exile on Main Street. I mean, that is one where I played my first Champaign show, so I have so much love there, but it's kind of unparalleled to me listening to a very cool live music event and then like browsing records and everything. I think it's just a wonderful vibe. Everyone there is so nice as well, especially when the shows are outdoor. Amazing. I just love it under that archway as well. I just am, plus tacos right next door.
Right.
So
I appreciate places that aren't necessarily specific to be venues that decide to have people come in and perform their music. And one of the things I also like about Exile is that it's an afternoon or it's an early show. And as an old person, I appreciate when I can catch some really great shows and it's, I can still get home by supper time. No, Exile definitely is one of my faves.
I have so many I can think of. I mean, I'm also a huge fan of the space. Like,
oh, yeah.
They've put on some amazing music there. The Sweet Milk Residency makes me so happy. Love Kenna, love Ori. Some of my favorite musicians of all time. One of the reasons I love Champaign-Urbana so much is how much music there is here. Coming from Peoria, we have a pretty decent amount of music, but it's a little bit more spread out and a lot less consistent. I feel like here, I can always guarantee that I'll be jamming to somebody, maybe even somebody I haven't seen before, which is amazing. So, I don't know. I think there are so many great places here that have great music.
I appreciate, at least here in Champaign, that there's the sense that you can, if you were in downtown Champaign or you were in downtown Urbana, that you could just kind of walk between venues and kind of pick and choose, but I'm curious about how, other than just being maybe more spread out, how would you say it was different between Champaign-Urbana and Peoria?
I'd say there's a lot more kind of folksy sort of bluegrass stuff in Peoria, definitely, at least in my experience. Finding music there is like, there's a lot of jams going on, I'd say. Generally, finding music there is a lot of like scouring the internet. Like, you know, you've got the Facebook crowds making the Facebook events that are a little bit more accessible to everybody. You've got the pop-up shows. The DIY scene in Peoria has gone through like big old peaks and valleys lately. We've had a whole bunch of house venues, and then we've had very few. Then we've had some venues that pop up, and then they're kind of inaccessible to smaller bands and stuff like that, just because of price and things like that. My friend Sarah Marie Dillard is a host of the open mic, the Listening Room in Peoria, where I see a lot of my favorite music is at the open mics. I mean, there's an open mic at least, you know, in Peoria, in Morton, East Peoria, almost every night. So that's lovely. Your face perked up when I said Sarah Marie Dillard.
I've heard that name before, and I'm pretty sure I've heard them before, but
just fantastic.
Okay.
Like, guitar playing is beautiful, and also, like, I don't know if she would describe herself like this. Personally, I believe a poet, like truly a poet, like in the sense of the word, that there is like pure meaning and that universal truth, and also an accessibility that everyone can appreciate her music. I just think so wonderful. And also, like, host the open mic has been teaching me and working with me as I figure this out. I mean, just an incredible community leader, like, and a dear friend. I'm very happy to say. You
mentioned DIY house venues. I'm curious, you say that they kind of came and went, and, you know, usually the DIY venues kind of ebb and flow here because of seasons of in school in session versus people graduating versus, you know, just people get busier or whatever, or move. Is that kind of what's happening with Peoria as well, like with Bradley University? I'm always curious, like, what is that evolution of, like, why are there more DIY venues during a certain time rather than what's going on with that? Yeah,
I think it's just, you know, the season of the students, absolutely, like whether or not they're there. We've had a few bigger venues, like, unfortunately be removed by, like, police presence and stuff like that. Very similarly, I think there's some fear to some of the ordinances that were happening in Bloomington with, like, sound and, like, people congregating and things like that. But generally there have been some venues that kind of move on to something bigger, like Mount Moon is a venue in Peoria, Illinois. Love it, based off the Pokemon reference. But they were originally a house venue, and now they've moved up to something so much bigger, and they host shows all over. They just recently had something called Mount Moon Fest, which raised a whole bunch of money for a local organization in Peoria called LULA. Really fantastic.
What's LULA?
LULA is an organization in Peoria that helps, like, community members experiencing, like, homelessness. Really, really wonderful organization, and really involved in the community. Again, we've had some pretty rough anti-homeless ordinances passed in Peoria that I'm using air quotes here, call camping. Like, they call it camping. So it's like, they're like, oh, you can't camp there. It's like, well, they're living there. So anyway, so that organization helps out a lot, and Mount Moon kind of picks a different organization every year, and then they have a whole bunch of bands in. Similarly, on the same weekend, there was an event called Reggie Fest, put on by my friend Reggie, which had a whole bunch of amazing queer and trans artists play. So there's music going on there. It's just that the venues are coming and going a little bit, and I'm hoping we can get some more going here soon. But yeah.
I mean, granted, this pod is about, you know, the Champaign-Urbana music scene, but it's important to realize that we can't just sit in our own echo chamber, like learn from our own musicians. It's important to have people from Bloomington and Peoria and St. Louis and Chicago come and visit here and share their music. I love some of the sounds that are coming out of Champaign-Urbana, but I also feel like we also have to have the opportunity to experience other music scenes and kind of grow in that way too, so that we learn new things. It's important to also think about, you know, Peoria also feeds the Champaign-Urbana music scene, and hopefully I would hope that Champaign-Urbana goes down and performs in Peoria often as well.
Most definitely.
Yeah. A close-knit community also needs to be fed by a larger community as well. I think so.
At ReggieFest, actually, Sweet Milk played. One of my favorites. If anyone has ever seen me at a Sweet Milk set, I apologize for the pure tenacity I bring to that pit. I could be alone standing there and I am thrashing.
I feel like I could go on forever about Sweet Milk, but if you want to hear the episode, it's episode 13 with Kenna May, who is the lead singer for Sweet Milk. Like, with all that in mind, what do you think makes a good music scene?
What makes a good music scene to me is a current buzzword is community, and people are kind of figuring out what that means. The ability for complete newcomers and folks that have been doing it a long time to really get a chance to play in the same field a little bit. I think that's what does it. I think what also does it is letting everyone make mistakes a little bit. Well, on the flip side of that, making it as safe and accessible as possible. Holding people accountable for harmful actions. Making a community in any means is all about safety for everyone involved.
Right.
And that means making sure everyone can come in there. So that means keeping people safe, keeping people out if it needs to be. So I feel like what makes a good music community is really ability to learn from one another, maybe a hope that nobody views anybody as lesser, which is hard.
You know, one of the things that I love about the idea of course, like of an open mic, and a good open mic, I think really does open it up to, you know, people that are just trying to get their legs, you know, their performance legs on. I'm all for people that feel comfortable with only recording their music in their bedroom and then sharing it out that way. That's great. But there's also people that feel like I need to know what me putting it out in the world and how it bounces back at me, how that feels, which not everyone has performed. Not everyone has had that opportunity. It's strange to me how much I learn about my own music when you perform it within a context of other human beings and the vibe that they give off. Sometimes I learn a little, like I have a different insight. I'm like, oh, I guess I don't know what it is. And it's not like people are like gasping or like cheering or anything, but just when you perform it out in front of other people, there's this, I don't know. We all have senses that we are not necessarily in full understanding of. There's an odd sense that we get from like the way that people just give off a vibe. There's a lot to be learned and a lot of growth to have based on being able to perform and then not be judged by the quality initially. Because it's funny, I've been around in this community long enough to have seen some people when they first started performing and they were shaken like a leaf. Like you could just, you could almost feel sorry for them because you're like, oh, please just don't fall apart. Mm-hmm. But now they're strong performers, and I can't say that fear that originally was there is not still there. In some ways, I still feel like you should have a little bit of fear because that keeps you sharp. I'm no expert at all, but just watching that transformation, you really, honestly, you just gotta suck. You gotta suck at first, you know? I know there's a few people that can get up there and be like, perfect, but I feel like it's good to get up there and suck really bad and then get into it at some point and then try it again and then feel how it gets better.
Yeah.
But
I personally, I am so new to this. I shake really bad. I get really anxious. And I think it's part of that is for a while, I was the newest newcomer to the open mic scene in Peoria. And it was really welcomed and it was really wonderful. And then after a minute, there was somebody new. And I saw them getting a little shaky. It gave me some perspective because I thought to myself, well, what would I have wanted to hear at that moment? And I think that's what it gives you. The thing that I could think of when I thought about when I first started performing is stress, sweat, smells worse. I stunk so bad for my first several open mics. And you know what? Now I only stink a little. So it's you gotta suck. You gotta have a hard time with it. And I think at the end of the day, it's ultimately redefining what it means to quote unquote suck at something. Putting yourself out there, putting yourself up there. I remind myself it's all about having fun. And that helps me because I don't think I'm going to be the biggest performer in the world. I don't think, anything. I don't really have any expectations or assumptions. But I ask myself the question of, am I having fun and am I being authentic? And that's all I can hope for, and hope I don't stink too bad after I get off stage.
Right.
I will say there's one thing that has been helpful to me. I did not ever think I was going to be performing. I did not ever think I was going to be playing music, especially my own music. We had talked about it a little bit earlier. There had been a few folks in my life who had passed, and one of those was my grandma, and she was a big singer, loved to sing, sang to us as a kid, that sort of thing. My grandpa on my mom's side was like a musician, and I was just like, this isn't for me. And now when I play, I'm kind of like, if you've ever seen the Carol Burnett show, she like wiggles her earlobe. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I
at the beginning of the show, she wiggles her earlobe, and that was like her signal to her grandma, like, I love you, and that sort of thing. So the way I've been describing it is like, when I play music, that's my wiggle to Margaret, shout out Margaret.
What do you think the Champaign-Urbana music scene could do better?
One thing I love about it is how many queer and trans artists there are. I think ultimately everywhere has kind of a responsibility to elevate voices that are not the majority at the moment. I especially feel like that because of legislation and conversations being had about people's bodies and identities. I feel like anywhere has kind of a responsibility now to elevate more like queer, trans, non-white voices in music especially. And I think that also blends back into letting people come and do their best, even if that means something new for the first time, even if that means like quote unquote sucking at something. I would also love to see more not whole bills that are entirely white. I know many friends of mine who are folk musicians, and I'm like, hey, why aren't you up there as well? I would love to see a bit more intentionality. But ultimately, I mean, I do love the scene. I do love the Peoria scene as well. I've seen some incredible musicians. So that's what I would hope. Just because I love great music. And I feel like it's pretty universally true that isn't made just by one demographic of human.
As much as they would like to believe that they are the only, like, that they invented it. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's La La Land all over again.
It feels like this can just be oversaid, but not said enough is, diversity really is key to a rich, healthy music scene.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this a lot recently as I've thought about the idea of like networking, quote unquote. And I was like, networking is really just a fancy business word for making friends. And I feel like very similarly, diversity as an intentional act is always very wonderful and powerful. But what that really means is just accurately representing the community around you, not excluding anyone based on a factor that you're refusing to acknowledge. It's a lot easier than people realize. You make friends with people, and that doesn't stop because they don't share an identity with you.
Champaign is also a Band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week, they can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. Welcome back. So, of course, Caspian, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
So my favorite non-musical thing, before I started playing music at all, I was a photographer, and I still am a photographer. That has been my connection to the music scene, and I think the reason I've jumped so hard into playing music is because I've been watching it for so long. But I love doing live videos. I love doing photos for artists. I've done a couple album covers that have been really wonderful. Like if you've seen anything with Pretzel Records, Julie from Pretzel Records, I have done a majority of the covers in there, as well as some interior inserts and stuff like that. It's lovely. I love it so much. It's so fun. It is my business, but it also is kind of my gift back to the community that I love so much, because I like taking pictures of performers. I think that's a fun way to participate in someone else's art. I love doing like spoken word as well, which I did it again. I called it spoken word. Obviously, it's spoken word.
Word reading?
Yes, word reading. The speaking stuff. Poetry is really, really fun. I'm releasing a series of poems and just a variety of short stories at some point within this next year. I'm trying to do as many creative projects as I can, so that's one of them. Also, I am doing a podcast.
I guess your podcast is talking to other photographers, and tell me a little bit about, well, first, what's the name and where can people find it?
Yeah, so it is called Ideal Angle, and the whole point of it is the ideal angle is all about a person's perspective. I wanted to sit down with photographers and chat with them about their photography process, their history and relationship with photography, and then take a few of their photos that might normally show up on an Instagram feed for like 30 seconds or be in an algorithm for 24 hours and really break down their process, the way they composed it, the way they did their post-processing process, I guess. And it's really, really fun. I've spoken to so many photographers. Some might even say I've spoken word to so many photographers. Right. And it's been incredible. I feel like I've learned so much because for me, the whole premise of it was I said this in the first episode with wonderful friend Shot by Jess, who does incredible work. I said I checked out all the books at the library about photography, so now I have to bother my friends. So that's the whole premise. I want to ask all these questions to people I really admire and learn to hopefully do it more like them. I know other people would want to know that too. So I'm trying to ask questions on behalf of people who want to learn about photography. And so far there's been wedding photographers, there have been photographers who do exclusively self-portraits, there have been photographers who do live music. I'm hoping to walk the whole range of it, but it's available on YouTube. It's a visual podcast. At some point, there will be audio released. It's just we'll lose the visual photo breakdown element of it, but the interview portions about the process and everything like that will still be available. So it's at YouTube under Caspian June, Caspian Voss, and you can just find it under Ideal Angle, and it's also on Instagram under Ideal Angle Pod.
I'll go ahead and add those to the notes so that if you want to go to when you're done listening to the pod, or even if you get bored with this pod and decide to just go to the notes, there will be a link there to go to the podcast in YouTube and also to the Instagram account.
Yeah, so it's a very fresh podcast at the moment. So,
cool.
Yeah.
How many episodes do you have out right now?
Right now, 2/3 on the way, and I have a decent chunk, a little bit less than 10 recorded right now. So
I'm kind of curious, although we talked about your podcast, I'm curious about, you don't just take pictures related to music. What other styles, I guess, do you like to focus on with your photography?
I started as a self-portrait photographer. So this was during the pandemic, and I wanted to just have a visual journal of myself. And I didn't know why I was so interested in that for a while. And then as I understood I was trans, I realized I had this entire visual journal of my start and understanding of my gender presentation up until now. And it's become a really beautiful archive of like versions of myself that I enjoy looking back at in all their different presentations. I also do a lot of event photography. As with anything with like music stuff, there's shows and there's gigs. Like, some pay the bills and some are really like fun ones you get to play. And it's all really fun because it's like your art medium, but that whole thing of you love what you do, you never work a day in your life isn't really true. So I do a lot of events. I've done stuff for the Peoria Park District in Peoria. I've done stuff for local events. Like I just recently did some photos for the Plant-Based Festival in Peoria, Illinois, which was really, really lovely. I've done stuff for the Uniting Pride Center here in Champaign. I try to do it all. I think it's just, if I can have my hands on a camera, I'm a happy camper. I love taking pictures of like the joy. I always look for the smiles and everything like that and anything. So I love having an SD card on my camera filled up with like somebody thrashing on an electric guitar, or like a crowded DIY basement, and then like a kiddo running through a like bounce house. And I love that dichotomy.
What was the thing where you found that photography was the thing for you?
Initially, I kind of thought of it like a support class in a video game. Like, my brother was a musician, my older sibling is a visual artist, and I thought, well, I can document my brother playing, and then I can help digitize my older sibling's art. And that's how I can support. I don't think I really have a talent or a skill or that sort of thing. I was really minimizing myself. And then I picked up a camera and started taking pictures, and I went, oh no, this feels wonderful. Like capturing a moment. There's a photographer that I reference all the time with a pretty intense phrasing for how she views photography. Her name is Jodie Spence, and she has the phrase cultural sniper, which I like a lot. But it's about the idea of like capturing that moment through the scope for that second. So that's kind of the idea that I have. Being able to take a picture of a friend too, and they look at that and say, that's me, I look so cool, or I look beautiful. That to me is the best. When I show someone a picture of themselves, they see the version of themselves that I see, like that beautiful, cool, wonderful person. That's all I can hope for.
Caspian, thank you so much for being on the show and telling me about your song Spirit, the Champaign-Urbana music scene, as well as the Peoria music scene, and also your favorite non-musical thing and your podcast, which is called
Ideal Angle.
I really appreciate you being on the show and meeting me out here at the Krannert Center for Performing Arts in the lobby with very few people, but somehow we were able to capture a few different people as well. But it's all part of the enjoyment. And now there's music being pumped in. That's weird. Yeah. Okay, that's new. Anyway, thank you so much for being on the show.
I have loved it. I have loved chatting with you, and your questions are so thoughtful. I've loved sipping lemonade with you. It's been a joy and a pleasure, and I'm so grateful I got to be on. Thank you for listening to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. This is Caspian June reminding you, great music is out there. Go find it where you live. It's La La Land all over again.
That's a wrap.
Champaign is also a band.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good.
LULA Studio, South Beaker, on the inside.
I mean, I love citrus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I keep forgetting how every time I'm just like, okay.
The lemonade is the third guest of the podcast, and they won't stop butting in.
Caspian, I have not met you before, but I already like you a lot. Okay.